So today, Nisa and I are gonna kick things off by discussing this very interesting tweet that came to my attention last week. Um, this is not somebody in the Twitter space, but it is somebody with a blue check mark, and this is what the tweet says. I'm not saying it's a universal rule, but I am saying that if you're really into cryptocurrency, there's a decent chance you're an insufferable asshole.
And wait, it goes on. I have no data to back this up. I have not taken a survey or conducted a study. It's just obvious, on par with things like people who avoid tipping or casually reference Ayn Rand.
Really interested.
Yeah, all that being said, this tweeter will gladly accept your Bitcoins or whatever nonsense imaginary cash you want to throw her way.
Why does everybody not in crypto think that crypto people are assholes? Like, do you get that ever? Do people ever say?
Crypto Twitter is a very special place. It's become the chat room for a lot of people to take sides. And if you notice, what trends well on crypto Twitter is being antagonistic. Like if you're really just posting information, sharing news, that's really not going to get people's attention. They want to have a good battle. People like to be in tribes. Twitter is tribal.
Twitter is very tribal in general, but we could say that about every group. But people really seem to hate crypto people. I don't know why, because I will admit I did get really into Ayn Rand in high school, but I do believe in tipping. But it's really interesting that individual kind of bucketed a love of crypto in with those other things.
Yeah, and also called it nonsense money. With nothing to back it up. So clearly is not very educated on what it is exactly. Just knows that people, the movement, when Satoshi wrote the white paper 11 years ago or so, the movement started with people on the fringe, as most movements do. So it might have been libertarians or cyberpunks, and it wasn't really mainstream. It's still not that mainstream. So it requires a lot of marketing. And so there are people on Twitter who are Bitcoin maximalists who will fight to defend the name of Bitcoin at all costs. And these people are brand building for Bitcoin. And they've done a really good job if you think about Bitcoin related to any other coin, right? Bitcoin is now the mainstream. People like this, who don't know really what it is, know about it.
Do you ever get into conversations with people, friends or colleagues who are not into crypto? Do they ever get angry at you when you bring it up? Because that's happened to me before.
I wonder if that's a generational I wouldn't say anger is the exact emotion. I might say defensive. Probably people in my generation are used to operating within the current financial system. And it's like, who moved my cheese? They are resistant to change. And change may not benefit them. It may benefit other generations, hopefully. But I wouldn't say it's angry. I really find it very interesting that people get angry around you when you bring it up.
maybe I'm too enthusiastic and I'm not explaining it properly. Huh.
I doubt that.
But nobody's ever called me an asshole.
Maybe they went on Twitter. No, I'm kidding. This comment, one of the comments is, some are greedy and in it to get rich, but others are there to change a broken system. I find this really interesting because, yes, Bitcoin was the most popular application of blockchain, and it was a lot of speculation and trading, and a lot of people did rush in to get rich, the ICO boom. But that is not what it is now. Um, I think it is much more about changing a broken system. And I think, if anything, this coronavirus has accelerated that and shown us how our system was broken.
Mm-hmm. Another one that says, beware of people who use cryptocurrency as a substitute for a personality. Ouch. Or cryptocurrency is CrossFit for the non-athletic crowd. I resent that because I used to be really into CrossFit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and not non-personality. I mean, I don't know about you, but some of the people that I've met in this industry have the most personality I've ever seen in any other industry. And it's not necessarily negative. I mean, do you think that, so the person who wrote this tweet is female. Um, and there's a little bit of this bro culture that has gone on. Do you think that the tweet reflects that at all?
Probably. I'm guessing this woman has had interactions on Twitter, and maybe she saw something about crypto or Bitcoin in the person's bio. And there are a lot of bro Twitter accounts that you can just, even if they're anonymous, they definitely, like, you can just kind of tell by like their username or some of the things that they talk about, that they're male. So that could be a part of it. But I think it's really interesting that, going back to the substitute for a personality or CrossFit for the athletic crowd, I think, yeah, CrossFit is very cult like. There seems to be like the cult of Bitcoin or crypto. Once you just fall down the rabbit hole, there's really no in between. Why do you think that is? That you're either like you're either not into crypto on blockchain at all, or you become obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm. I think if you really take the time to understand the technology behind it, then you fall into the camp of becoming obsessed with it. And you understand the problems that it could fix that
Mm-hmm.
that we're currently dealing with. If you don't, I think it's really easy to dismiss it as money that's backed by nothing. But I thought you raised a really interesting point about um, these cults of personality. I think that also comes from the fringe, and I think that the early adopters, or the people who got into it early, there was a cult of personality. They were evangelizing this, and um, they had very unique characteristics. There was a special that aired about a year and a half ago on CNBC about this industry. And the people that they picked to be representatives were the Wolf of Wall Street, a man living in a literal treehouse, and the only woman on the show was running a prostitution ring with Bitcoin. So
Mm.
when you have major media outlets that are showing these kinds of sensational stories for ratings, then that's what you're going to think about the industry, and it's really becomes easier to dismiss it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The media is not really doing a great job of showing the depth of the crypto industry. And then this woman probably had a few. I mean, I think she has like hundreds of thousands of followers, so I'm sure she's had her fair share of trolls, like most people who are on Twitter. So she probably, like, yeah, crypto people are very opinionated. I mean, I think you see a lot of opinionated people in general on Twitter, but crypto Twitter is like, they're like shameless. They have no problems, because you have to be. You have to, um, in order to get to the point where you really understand crypto, you have to become obsessed with it. And for me, it was the point when I started looking at finances and money from a different perspective. So I think once somebody gets really interested in crypto, they become like really, like, there's a philosophical uh, tie-in that really gets them in. And so they're going to defend crypto and thereby all of their beliefs, because it'll just start changing like a lot of your, like it'll really strengthen a lot of your core beliefs. So that could be it.
So
But
thought Bitcoin was political.
mm-hmm.
And just like our political system in the United States, everything becomes bipartisan and it becomes a fight. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with crypto. Like Bitcoin itself becomes a political tool. Like I think I saw this the most last summer with the Libra hearings on the Hill, and Libra being, Facebook's initiative to launch what is similar to a cryptocurrency, but not. That was a challenge to the global dominance of the US dollar as a reserve currency. And that unleashed central bank digital currencies around the world competing to have a digital version of their currency. And I think that kind of Bitcoin was almost like this third leg of the stool there. And there were these three competing potential currencies, corporate, government, and then there's Bitcoin, which is not subject to government or any controls. It's non-sovereign. So I just think it becomes political in that way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely see what you mean in that sense. I want to just go back to, it's so strange. I see two comments in response to this tweet. Somebody commented, and a Bernie bro or a Trump supporter. It's like those are two opposite sides of the political spectrum. I think what they're saying is like we just talked about the cult of personality. Like that's really interesting. They didn't say far right, they didn't say far left. They said Bernie and they said Trump, which are two of the strongest cults of personality in a very divisive topic of politics. So it's really interesting going back to what you said. It's like less to do with like is this person an asshole, but something about the cult of personality that seems to be a common thread through a lot of crypto enthusiasts is what we'll call them.
What do you think? Is everyone who's into crypto an asshole? What is the worst thing that somebody who's really into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies said to you? We really want to know. Send us an email at blockchainpod@gmail.com or find us on Twitter @dailyblockparty.